Alléluia, Alléluia, Alléluia. Tu n'as jamais cessé de croire, pourtant il t'a suffi de voir l'amour se baigner sous la lune. Sa beauté a crevé tes yeux, fondu l'immensité des cieux, et sur ta bouche elle dessine un alléluia.
Without thinking, just say, I am color X. What color do you think you are?
Sort of a creamy orange.
A creamy orange.
Yes, kind of an
okay.
off-white, like you might have had your walls in the late 90s.
We are going to do your aura photo. We find more often than not, people will actually get their color right. We have a sense of who we are.
Can't wait. Let's see what happens.
Put your hands on these plates.
Feels a little bit like the electric chair, Rick. Is that
There's little danger here.
Okay.
Here we go.
An aura is a coloured band that some people say they can see around a human body, showing its spiritual state. Few can see them, but I found a man called Eric Sage who said he had a camera that could do just that. It seemed like an odd job, looking up people's auras every day. A bit awkward to be stepping in on something so private. But I supposed Eric was the professional, like a gynecologist or such.
That's pretty good.
This is Tinder gold, right here.
When I was 4, I had many visions of meeting God and meeting new people.
Indigo children. Astral beings sent to guide us all to a higher plane, or hyper children running around with untreated ADD.
How can you tell if your child is gifted or has a disorder? Some parents and even some doctors believe that a number of children today are gifted with psychic powers. They call them indigo children.
The term has been around since the 1970s, coined by psychologist and medium Nancy Ann Tapp, who claims she'd noticed a sharp uptick in the number of babies born with indigo-coloured auras. But it was in the 90s that the phenomenon took off in the mainstream, thanks to the book The Indigo Children, The New Kids Have Arrived, by husband and wife team Lee Carroll and Jan Tober.
Say you're an indigo, and somebody comes up to you and asks you a question about their life, and you could tell them what it was and how it happened.
They entered all of our homes. Oprah featured them, documentaries exposed them, and all across America, thousands of parents refused to swallow their kids' ADHD medicine, rejecting medical diagnoses in favor of declaring their kids as indigo.
I think it's a stab at trying to apply a more positive label to these children rather than the more pejorative terms like ADHD.
Many of the kids who were raised in its shadows are now adults. Do they still see it as their glorious destiny, or as something much less benign?
So if my motherfucking indigos out in the building, let me hear real quick.
I've come to America to see how brightly the indigo movement's aura is still shining. My journey began in New York, where I was in Sheepshead Bay to meet a full-blown adult indigo.
It's been hard to put a definition on what exactly indigo is. The indigos are a leaderless group, but Edward, the man I'm about to meet, is at least the leader of the New York City Indigo Meetup group. So perhaps he'll have some ideas.
Edward claimed to be on an intense spiritual journey, which was in part why his apartment contained no furniture. He first diagnosed himself indigo over a decade earlier, after an online test.
Hello, Edward. I'm Gavin. I've come over from England to search about indigo children. I gather you're the boss of the NYC Meetup group for indigos.
Yes, I'm the founder.
So what are the key indigo traits?
Highly psychic or intuitive. Many of them will capable of healing other people, whether emotionally or energetically or physically. Non-conformity to anything from school to parents to jobs. That is why many of them out of place. They just plain simple different. There is no label to it. It's not ADD or ADHD. It's just a different vibrational, energetical type of a person. The whole notion of indigos, the whole idea is pretty much to change the way of the world in every aspect.
And what are you here to do differently?
My spiritual journey to help people, to bring that change individually as well as on a group level through spiritual awakening, conscious awakening, and change all the patterns you acquired one lifetime after another.
I mean, could you perhaps read my past lives?
I will need to shut my eyes for a moment to give you an answer for that, all that.
Edward didn't seem to be getting any information about my past life. Was that the psychic's protective boredom threshold kicking in? Even I wasn't sure.
So it's very interesting. First of all, I am not getting any information about your past life, but still some information came through that I was told to relate to you.
Okay.
And that information actually, first of all, you are an indigo yourself. You are an indigo.
I am an indigo.
Yourself, first of all. Second of all, it is so. Find your core. Find what moves you and makes your soul and your heart sing, and do that. You will be able to bring a lot of changes and beauty to this world in your own way.
Okay. Well, and on that I-bomb bombshell, this is Gavin Haynes, Indigo, signing off with Edward Tarashansky, Indigo-ish.
Very nice meeting you, brother.
Edward's message to find what moves me was inspiring, but as what moved me was cockfighting and the films of Michael Bay, perhaps I was going to struggle to bring much joy into the wider world. The upside to being diagnosed indigo was that I was now part of a kind of extended family. I wanted to go and meet more of my brothers and sisters, so I went to see the Brands. Idelle, who was a holistic dentist, and her daughter, Diandra, who was an indigo healer.
Hello.
Holistic dentistry, it turns out, was just like regular dentistry, but with tuning forks sending out psychic vibrations, spiritually charged crystals for patients to hold during their root canal, and funky esoteric necklaces. So, not much like regular dentistry then.
What does holistic dentistry entail?
Holistic dentistry entails working with materials for the patient's highest good. You want to use dental materials that are biocompatible. Therefore, you don't want to use anything that's toxic, like silver mercury fillings are very bad. We also avoid fluoride, because fluoride also is a neurotoxin.
Diandra, you are an indigo?
Yes. At 16, I became a full-blown intuitive. I started seeing angels around people. I started seeing colors, that's the etheric field, the chakras on people. And then I started talking to other forms, so angels, archangels, ascended masters, god, goddesses, etc. So for me, it wasn't about separating myself or thinking that it was weird or different. It was just about knowing that there's something more and what can I do with this gift.
We've written this book, Enlightened Indigo Child, so that parents and children together can learn what they need to do to have a very healthy child. All these kids are being institutionalized and labeled with some horrible mental or emotional disease, which they don't really have.
I mean, with the example of Diandra, was she ever labeled as...
Well, she was labeled as having some sort of disability, a learning disability. Here's a child who's absolutely brilliant in more ways than one, and we have a teacher who thinks she's got a problem.
Okay.
I know my child better than any teacher. I know she doesn't have a problem. If anyone has a problem, it's the teacher and the school system.
The Brands offered to show me one of the services that made their dentistry holistic, specially made tuning forks to detox the body and balance its energies.
The reason why we got into this was because I had my own challenges. I had Lyme disease for 8 years. And when I had it, I was quite handicapped. Conventional medicine said that I would never be well and I should just close up my practice and go on permanent disability. And that was gone when I took the weekend course in the tuning forks. It changed me. It changed my whole life.
Sitting in the dentist chair, having tuning forks waved around me, felt very luxurious. It was a bit like when I was a kid and they had calming pictures of Donald Duck on the ceiling at the dentist.
It's over. How are you?
Just kind of tripping balls there.
I bet.
Idelle seemed to place a lot of weight on her daughter's specialness, and the dynamic between them was certainly intense. A St. Elmo's fire of the auric field. Flemington, New Jersey. When we heard that there was going to be a psychic fair at the local Elk Lodge,
My own psychic sense told me that maybe we could find an indigo or two here.
Well, the stones have all different properties. For example, we have like our rose quartz.
Yeah.
When you're looking for love.
Can we get a couple of them? How much are they? They're $3 a pop. Bargain. Are you indigo? Do you know any indigos?
Yes, I'm an indigo.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay. How does it feel?
It was interesting now as an adult. I could say I was out of body and I was more comfortable out in nature or in solitude than I was comfortable at school or with other kids.
So what are you doing here at the fair?
I'm a shamana, which means a female healer. So I'm doing etheric surgery and armor removal, which means I scan a person's auric field to see what structures are there that are blocking the flow of spiritual energy.
Okay. Well, it sounds like very important work, and thank you very much for sharing it.
Thank you so very much.
Not only was this a one-stop mediclinic for etheric surgery, the psychic fair was also full of the usual clairvoyants, gemstone salesmen, and auric artists.
Love the artwork. Is there something representational here?
Chromotherapy, color healing, working with colors.
What about indigo? Is that a color which you incorporate within your palette?
Yeah, indigo is a very powerful color.
Are you aware of the concept of indigo children?
I have an indigo child.
Do you?
I do.
And what is it like to be an indigo mother? And is that a special thing?
Well, you kind of buckle up and sit back and relax as best as you can because they're always on the go. They're very knowledgeable. They're very insightful to the point where it can be a little bit spooky sometimes how they know things.
Was this child asked to be put on medication at any point?
I pretty much refused medication.
Okay.
We used sugared iced tea.
What's that?
Iced tea.
Okay, sugared iced tea.
That has sugar because it reverses. It calms them down. Like if she had a test, she would get really, really nervous. So in the morning, I would be sure.
Because normally sugar would hype kids up.
And it has the reverse effect on my daughter.
Well, that is one to ponder. Thank you very much for your time.
Good to meet you.
Turns out I've been treating myself as an indigo for many years with sugared iced tea and didn't even know it. Indigos seem to be plugged into a higher spiritual switchboard. I began to wonder what would happen if I dialed out to modern psychology. It was time to seek out professional help.
Thanks so much for sitting down with us. Why don't you just start by telling us a little bit about your practice?
Well, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I work with children, teens, and adults. I specialize in ADHD.
What are the key symptoms of ADHD?
Many people know the basic ones of lack of focus and inattention, difficulty getting started on tasks, so that's procrastination. And once you get started on something, it's very hard to maintain effort, so you kind of lose effort and focus. Difficulty actually regulating your emotions.
That sounds like a lot of people I know.
It's not so much the symptoms as to the severity.
I mean, what does treatment involve for ADHD nowadays?
Basically, nowadays, Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, Vyvanse, stimulants are the main treatment.
So you very much believe that ADHD and ADD are real things, real entities in the world. These are diagnosable conditions.
Absolutely.
You mentioned earlier a case of a woman who came to you with a child who potentially had ADHD, but she had diagnosed as indigo and taken away from you again. What happens if ADHD goes unchecked?
Years of undiagnosed ADHD lead to school failure. And if it's super hyperactive, maybe he can't make friends and keep friends. And year after year of failure compounded leads to real or pervasive and deep shame about oneself, which is the recipe for depression and anxiety and drug use and then possibly jail. Recognizing a child with ADHD can draw well or horseback ride or do something unique and supporting those gifts is great. But saying that you, without doing anything, are unique and special and different than every other child is not helpful.
You think they're making mini monsters, children who can only be isolated?
Yes, right. Narcissists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing.
Yes.
The older I've gotten, the more I've realized that my drawing usually is really much better than I think it is when I just don't judge it at all. When I kind of just draw, and there's no judgment, and it's just freestyle. Oh, this is actually the chakra test that I took online. My indigo third eye was 89%, and it was the most active.
Yeah. Serafina was diagnosed as indigo at a young age by her mother when she started recognizing her extraordinary gifts.
Were you already interested in the idea of indigo children? Was it something that appealed to you?
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. I think from the time I was in my 20s, I began delving into spirituality and the meaning of life, vibrations, past lives.
When did you first realize that your daughter was an indigo child?
Oh, very, very early on. From the moment that she was an infant, the unique way Serafina sees the world, visually, in terms of perspective, it's very different.
Some people feel that indigo children have been sent here to open up the world to a new age. Do you feel that you've been sent here to open up the world to a new age?
I feel that I've been sent here not only to benefit those who know me in terms of giving advice or having a shoulder for someone to cry on or be able to give them a different perspective on life, but also just for me to figure out what I'm here for and figuring out what my journey is.
I find I'm constantly learning from her. So each year is just this new discovery of the more gifts she has.
Tell me about your gifts.
I can read auras of people that I've been living with for a while, like my mom or my brother. I always realize, like, yeah, she has this orange glow about her, and it was something that I always
Okay, so it's orange.
Orange.
I don't know, I don't see him.
And what about your brother's aura?
I'd say my brother's aura is like a light blue. He's definitely blue because I find blue to be like strong, and it can kind of be cold or even aggressive.
A cold blue. Was it any wonder her brother was called Azure? Serafina seems to spend a lot of time comparing herself to her older brother. The more she talked of him, the more I sensed the dynamic between them could be the key to something.
And what was it like growing up with an indigo sister?
Serafina's a lot more artistic and creative than I am, and she has a very different way of viewing things than I do, and I think that was like obviously a large source of our confrontations. And academically, school has come much easier to me than it has to Serafina. That's not to say with lack of trying on her part, but for me it was like school was always a second thought. It was like whatever I wanted to do, and then sure, I'll get my A's and then move on. Whereas for Serafina, she really had to like sit down and, you know, contain her attention on the one topic at hand.
But in a world of online auto-diagnosis quizzes, indigo has long since spread its tentacles outside of the realms of psychic fairs to the hip-hop community. Together with the likes of Pro Era and Flatbush Zombies, the Underachievers are popularizers of an esoteric rap phenomenon some call Beast Coast, preaching the gospel of indigo through their music. I went to New York's Webster Hall for their homecoming show.
So where my motherfucking indigos at in the building? Let me hear real quick. I said, where my motherfucking indigos at in the building? Let me hear. Hey, a rapper who was searching for treasures and gets gold. Fishing for gold, I found a key.
If it wasn't for you guys, I don't think I'll be everywhere I'm at right now. Yeah, for real. You guys made me prosper so much.
My goal is to unite our generation. I don't think that I'm going to succeed, but in the past 2 years and 3 years of us trying to do it passionately, we've come far.
And I mean, what do you think of the link between ADD and indigo? Do you think there is a case for the counter argument that, like, some kids diagnosed as indigo when they should be on medication?
I don't believe in ADHD. Because when I was younger, I was like smart, but I was like very bad in class, like mischievous. So they wanted to put me on Ritalin and like Adderall. Thank God for my mom. She was like, no way you're doing that shit. I seen that they kept telling kids that they had ADHD, a lot of kids inside my generation. So I started to do research on it online, thanks to the internet. I came across indigo. So then I just went on a mission from then, for me telling as many kids like, yo, you're not hyperactive. You're probably indigo. That's where it all started for me. So,
told me that.
diagnosis indigo.
Yeah.
But is everyone you know indigo? Is that like a
Yeah.
kind of a blanket statement? I mean, what percentage of your friends are indigo?
Like you are.
Yeah.
Like everyone is. Everyone.
Okay.
It's because of the power of the internet, right? It's linking us up in a way that we've never been able to link up before. The indigo shit became the universal consciousness. That's like my religion and what I believe in. And that's pretty much saying that God is the combination of every single living thing on the planet. But the problem is that we have country lines and we're divided by economic class and weight class and intelligence and color and race and culture and religion and all these different ways that are dividing us. We lose track of the connection that really keeps us together. Because of the power of the internet, right? It's linking us up in a way that we've never been able to link up.
Effaçons les démons du passé, il n'y a plus qu'à recommencer et vivre dans la lumière d'un Alléluia. Alléluia, Alléluia, Alléluia.